In a tank somewhere, there is a jellyfish smaller than your fingernail that has, in a sense, refused to die. When it gets old, or starving, or badly hurt, the point where almost anything else would simply end, it does something else. Its whole body reverses. The adult melts back down into its own baby form, settles onto a rock, and grows up all over again. Old age, undone. And as far as anyone can tell, it can do this again and again with no built-in limit. It is not magic. It is not a myth. It is a real animal, and biologists have watched it happen. Which leaves us with a very uncomfortable question. If a jellyfish can dodge death, why can't you? We treat death as the one true certainty. Taxes, maybe. Death, definitely. The single rule with no exceptions. Except it does have exceptions. That jellyfish is one. And it isn't alone. Scattered across the tree of life are creatures that barely age at all. That are, in the ways that matter, running on a clock that never seems to count down, which quietly turns the whole question inside out. If death is not actually required, if biology can, and sometimes does, build a body that just keeps going, then the mystery was never really why those animals don't die. The mystery is why we do, and the answer is not the one you'd expect. It isn't that your body simply wears out, like a machine that was always going to break. It's that evolution could have built you to last, and very deliberately, in a sense, chose not to. Start with the animals that got away with it. There's a tiny freshwater creature called a hydra, a little tube with tentacles that seems to sidestep aging almost entirely. Its body is packed with stem cells that constantly renew, and in the lab, hydra just don't get old the way we do. Old hydra are about as likely to die as young ones. Their risk of death barely climbs with time at all. There's a shark in the cold North Atlantic, the Greenland shark, that may live for 3, 4, even 500 years. There are Greenland sharks alive today that were swimming before your country existed. There's the naked mole rat, a wrinkled little underground rodent that has quietly broken one of biology's supposed rules. For almost every animal, the longer you've lived, the more likely you are to die this year. That climbing risk is basically the definition of aging. The naked mole rat doesn't play along. An old one is barely more likely to die than a young one. It more or less refuses to age on schedule. And it isn't only animals. High in the mountains of the American West, there are bristlecone pines that were already ancient when the pyramids were new, trees pushing 5,000 years old that show almost no sign of the slow decline we'd call aging. A tree quietly outliving whole civilizations. So let's be clear about what this means. Aging is not a law of physics. It is not something the universe demands. Life can be built to keep going, which makes your own ending stranger, not less strange. If it's possible to not age, then why were you built with an expiration date at all? Here is the first piece of the answer, and it's a little brutal. Evolution does not care about you. Not really. It cares about one thing: whether your genes make it into the next generation. And that has a strange consequence for how long you get to live. Think about a harmful gene, one that does something bad to your body. If it hurts you when you're young, before you've had children, natural selection sees it clearly and ruthlessly. People with that gene have fewer kids, so the gene fades out. Selection scrubs it away. But now imagine a gene that does nothing at all until you're 70. By 70, in the world we evolved in, you would almost certainly have already had your children and their children. Your genes are already passed on. So a gene that harms you at 70 is, to evolution, nearly invisible. It faces almost no pressure to remove it. It just sits there. And over millions of years, those late-acting problems pile up. Nobody's clearing them out, because by the time they strike, selection has stopped watching. The biologist Peter Medawar saw this clearly back in the 1950s. Aging, he realized, isn't necessarily something that's actively built. A lot of it is just everything evolution never had a reason to fix. The damage that only ever shows up after the part of your life that evolution actually cared about. You can even see the logic in the timing. The things that tend to go wrong late in life, the failing repair, the errors that pile up in your cells cluster suspiciously in the years after evolution's attention has moved on. It's almost as if a factory kept its quality checks razor sharp right up to the moment a product shipped, and then, the instant it was out the door, stopped inspecting entirely. Whatever breaks after that is simply not evolution's problem. That's the first, quiet cruelty. Not that evolution wants you dead. That once you've reproduced, it simply stops looking. But it goes deeper than neglect, because sometimes evolution actively trades your old age away for your youth. A biologist named George Williams added the next piece. Imagine a gene that does two things. It makes you strong and fertile and vigorous when you're young, and it slowly damages you when you're old. Maybe it pushes your cells to grow fast and divide eagerly, which is wonderful at 20, and which quietly raises your risk of cancer at 60. Evolution will grab that gene without hesitation. Because the young benefit more offspring, right now outweighs a cost that only lands decades later, when most animals would be long dead anyway. Your later decline gets sold cheaply to buy a stronger start. A lot of what ages you may be the very same machinery that made you thrive when it counted. And there's a budget underneath all of it. A biologist named Tom Kirkwood put it this way: your body has only so much energy. It has to split that energy between two jobs, repairing itself and reproducing, and evolution has quietly done the math. In the wild, a mouse is almost certainly going to be eaten within a year or two, no matter how well its body is maintained. So why spend precious energy building a mouse that could last 30 years? That maintenance would be wasted. Far better to pour the energy into breeding fast while you still can. So the body in this view is close to disposable. It's a vehicle, built just sturdy enough to carry your genes through the years you're likely to survive anyway, and no sturdier. You are, in the coldest terms, the packaging. The thing evolution is actually trying to keep alive is the line that runs through you. And this is where it comes back around to that jellyfish and to you. Notice what all the animals that cheat death have in common. The hydra, the naked mole rat safe in its burrow, the deep cold shark with no predators. They live in places, or in bodies, where they were likely to survive a long time anyway. And when long life becomes likely, evolution suddenly has a reason to protect it. So it does. Lifespan, it turns out, tracks how likely you were to die of something else. Build a creature that predators can't easily reach, and evolution will happily let it last for centuries. Which means aging was never really about time. It was about danger. And here's the part that should stop you. In the wild, almost nothing dies of old age. A mouse, a sparrow, a rabbit, they are eaten, or frozen, or starved, long before their bodies would ever have worn out. For nearly all of history, the same was true of us. Old age is not the natural end of most lives. It is a rare privilege, the thing you only get to experience if you first escape everything else. You are not aging because that's simply what happens. You are aging because you survived long enough to reach the part of life that evolution never bothered to design. You outran the predators it was expecting to kill you. And now you're living in the extra time so new in evolutionary terms that your body was never built for it. So step all the way back. And the answer to why you die is not a curse, or a punishment, or a design flaw. It's a side effect. You die because you were built to pass life on, not to hold on to it. Every one of your ancestors was, in the end, a temporary vehicle good enough to make the next one, and then quietly allowed to run down. That is the deal that made you. The immortal thing was never any single body. It was the line, and you are its newest, briefly lit end. Evolution loved you exactly as long as it took to make what comes after you, and so far, not one day longer. So here is the gentler way to hold it. A candle is not broken because it burns down. It was never trying to last. It was made to give light for a while, and giving light is the same act as being used up. The two were always the same thing. You are not dying because something in you is going wrong. You are dying because a very long line of others, before you, burned all the way down, exactly on time, and handed the flame forward until it reached you. You didn't get cheated out of forever. You got handed the light. The least strange thing you can do with it is let it be warm while it's lit.